Okay. Tell me if I come on the screen, Jeremy. Give me a thumbs up. Good evening, Woodstock. I'm Gordon Wemp. Welcome to my show, Canary in the Coalmine. As usual, we're doing local politics here, and we have a couple of two, possibly three guests tonight running for local offices. I'd like to just talk to you for a second before we move on to them. We have, it's considered an off-year election. Nothing for the president, nothing for the governor, but we do have some very important local races this year. If we can move out to the county, we have Mike Hine, who's we've recently gone to an executive form of government. And what that entails is we have an executive who sort of sits as a governor sits. We also added the comptroller position, who basically keeps track of the well, he does keep track of the finances in and among the county expenditures. And this is a very important office. Elliot Auerbach's done a great job tracking down some of the money and where it's spent and how it's spent, and it really helps in terms of the executive to form a budget that helps with prudent spending. Another component of that this year is a very important part of that is the a change in the legislature, and they sit sort of like any legislature does, and they work alongside with the executive to enact laws. And recently, as we sit now, we have 33 members in the legislature, but this year it's going to go down to 23. And the main impetus behind that is the fact that these 23 legislators will be single-member districts. Before, the members changed depending on how things were gerrymandered from legislature to legislature. But this one was brought in as tight as possible so we have equal size, nearly equal size districts for each member of the legislature. One of the big pluses of this is that we have a little bit more direct representation, and you know who you can find out much easier who your legislator is and who to call instead of maybe having 3 or 4 numbers to call and not getting any of them or not knowing who's going to help you do what. But with this also comes a great savings to the county. If you figure it's probably well over $200,000, I'm guessing, alone in salaries and medical expenses that we'll be saving from reducing the legislature. So this is an important move, and I'd like to make a call, everybody, to understand the party that really brought this about. It's the Democrats that worked very hard on this several years ago to enact this. It did meet resistance from a large member of the Republican Party. It didn't want to see this go down. So I'd like to see everybody get out and support the people who have helped save money and make representation a little fairer here in Ulster County and bring about a more responsible government form in the county. So hopefully we don't see any more mega jails being built, and we concentrate on some of the issues that are a little more near and dear to us. So, such as the ongoing talks with Golden Hill, the medical needs that we have, a lot more personal needs that need to be dealt with instead of large mega jails. I always felt that was a big jump into a mega county issue that we were skipping over a lot of other things when we did that. So I'd like to see everybody get out and show support. We have Don Gregorius running on the Democratic line, and I'd like to see everybody give him their support. Don's done a great job at watching Woodstock's dollars. We worked hard to make sure there was a little challenge against Don in the primary. Well, actually, prior to the primary, and Don didn't have to run it on the primary, but he did secure the seat for the Democratic line. But Don's done a lot of work for us here, things like safety net. These are things that can affect Woodstock and do affect Woodstock. The amount that we pay in regard per capita. So it's really important. I think Don's is on the Ways and Means Committee and has really done a lot to help with finances in Woodstock and to help save you Woodstock taxpayers a lot of money. He's worked hard the last few years to accumulate this knowledge, and he's in a prime spot to really help us out. So I'd like to see everybody get out and give Don their support. Another office that's sort of a lot of people are probably not very sexy or high profile, but it is one of the big races here in Ulster County, and that's for the district attorney. We have Jonathan Sennett, who did run against Holly Carnwright 4 years ago and lost in a 3-way race. Although Holly did not get a majority vote, it was split, rather tight 3 ways, and Bradley and John Sennett split a lot of Democrats and independents, and Holly pulled away with the job. we have yet to see a Democratic DA in Ulster County. And I think this makes some of the old timers and that nervous. They know Holly. Holly's a local guy. From what I've seen, he doesn't really rock the boat when it comes to the top level dogs. He seems to be doing a fairly good job in getting convictions in that. And a lot of those, as you know, are just plea bargains anyway. So it's pretty easy to say you have a 95% conviction rate when most of them are just go by and they're plea bargained anyway. What I've seen, I'd like to see a little bit more attention, and John has certainly made this campaign issue against domestic violence and gang-related and youth-related and age-related crimes. You know, the gangs, and we certainly had some of that in Woodstock with a rash of car break-ins, home break-ins. These are things that I think we really need to focus on. I'd much rather see that being focused on than 65-year-old pot dealers being busted in their basement. You know, that's just, to me, not really, maybe it's the safe way to make an arrest, but certainly not gonna, I'm certainly not worried about aging pot smokers. They don't really make me worry about what's going on, although, you know, hearing about break-ins in the hinterlands certainly does concern me and should concern everybody. John certainly has a handle this, and I noticed very quickly that Holly adopted this campaign rhetoric after John was fully immersed in it. And also, John has made a really big deal about some of the white-collar crime, and even some of the, he's out to watch our money at the top level. There's, you know, a case going on with a detective who there seems to be a lot of money missing, whether he took it or not. I guess it's still under trial. But there's been some issues about this, that the present DA has off-book accounts that are not accounted by Elliot Auerbach. They're not there to be under full accounting of the county's coffers. And I think this is very important, that all this stuff is above board and we can account for it easily. A lot of this money that was fed into Matthew's care came from the DA, and a lot of this has been covered under the auspices of you know, he can't talk about it because it's in trial. But there's been calls for Holly to recuse himself, and he hasn't. And certainly, I would have no problem with an outside agency coming in and taking this over, especially when so many of the people are tied into it. And that's what I'm looking for, and I think it makes a lot of people, it makes them a little more comfortable when there's a guy who's not going to really take everybody to task. Certainly, it seems to a lot of people were really upset with how the jail was handled, and there was so much money spent and very little accounting for it. And to this day, I don't think anybody can really say what went down there. But certainly, and it was with the trash agency, there's a lot of things going on with a lot, and it comes out of your pocket, ends up coming out of your pocket when these things aren't, when there's not a careful watchdog over this. I want a DA who's going to work for the people, and not just for the old boys in the network, you know. And I think that's why John scares some of the local people here, the local higher-ups, because he's come in with a fresh head. And I know John, his integrity is unsurpassed. He's a fair man, and he's got a good heart, you know. And that's the bottom line for me. And I really want to see people get up there and give John their vote. And then, so that's you know, coming up on it quick. It's 9 days away. It's a week from Tuesday. We'll be out at the polls, and I want you all to get out there. I really want to see Woodstock get out there, especially Democrats. I'm on the Democratic committee, and I want you to make me proud of you. Get out there and pull some levers. I want to see those numbers. I don't care who you vote for, but get out there and vote. It's important. It really is, especially in local races. You know, you can vote all you want for Obama or the other guy, whoever runs against him, but we'll probably be a blue state, and with the Electoral College, your vote's not going to make a lot of difference. But here, it makes a big difference. Many votes are decided by 1, 2, 3, 4 votes. They're waiting a week for they had the mayor's race in Kingston. They for the primary, they had to wait a couple of weeks to get the absentee ballots counted, and I don't know if it's still under you know. And then they go to court, a lot of them, especially if they're close. So you know, one vote, one person, really makes a difference in the local races. So get out, you know, and exercise your right to vote, because here's where you can see the fruition of that. And here's where it really affects you. I mean, this is where your money is spent primarily. You know, income tax. They talk about income tax on all these shows, on Fox News, on MSNBC. But hell, you know, for most people I know, the income tax isn't the real killer. It's the property tax. It's what you're paying, your school taxes, your county, your local tax. You know, it's what you're paying. It's what you're paying on your job for Social Security and Medicaid and all that. Those are the big hits, and a lot of those they start right here. You know, and this is where it starts. And so it's really important that we get out there and get the right people in. So with that, I'm going to be turning over in a second to Jeremy Wilber. I hope a lot of you saw the supervisors debate the other night. It was really well done. Brian Hollander, the editor for the Woodstock Times, moderated it, and it had a really nice feel to it. I think we really got to the issues, and we gave everybody enough room to stretch their legs and really answer the questions. And you know, it was a couple hours long, and I think it's being shown to be shown on the carousel this week. I think Angela got it in there, and I hope so. If not, it is archived on the Woodstock TV. If you go on Ustream to Woodstock TV, you can click right in, or go to woodstocktv.org, and there's links to that, and you can watch it online. I'm certainly supporting Jeremy Wilber this year. The Democrats got it right in endorsing Jeremy Wilber. I was with Jeremy on the board from 2002 through 2005. We did a lot of great work there. We did a lot of things with the money coming in and revenue we had, creating specific reserves that really shows you where the money's going and makes it much more difficult to play around and shift money around to cover your tracks as you go. The specific reserves also help future boards to not take big hits when, just say, if you get 3 people retiring in 1 year, like that's one of the reserves that we put together for retirement reserves. These things, you know, you put the money, you salt the money away, so when these things happen, you're not all of a sudden accounting for a huge hit. Also capital reserves for projects. And these are some of the important things that we did. And through that, when Jeremy, with the work he did, we got a 2-point bond jump, which I heard at the time was really unprecedented. It was an unparalleled kind of thing that doesn't happen often to get that kind of jump from one audit. So we were showing them, and also one of the things that, you know, Jeremy really held tight on was not growing the government, not taking that money and starting creating all kinds of new jobs with it, and, you know, going credit card happy. You know, it didn't happen. And he kept the tight belt, and, you know, I used to make jokes with the other council persons that we had to go to, if we got to get something done, we had to go to Jeremy and turn him upside down and shake his pockets. Because, you know, that money wasn't coming out real easy. It wasn't just handing it over for any whim we had. You know, we had to put together some sound programs and some sound reasoning. And that's one thing, the other night, you know, I see some of the people try to make this race a little, you know, like there's all this animosity. You know, I think Lauren Rose is a great guy. You know, from what I've known of him, I know some of his family and that, and he certainly, you know, is a fine fella. You know, but I think some of the things he's got wrong. You know, I think anybody who would be running for the first time. There's a lot to know with this job. You know, it doesn't come easy, and it takes a lot of hard knocks to get there. Jeremy's certainly taken his knocks, and I'm glad he's back to give us another round. He's as what they said, he's tan, he's rested, and he's ready, to quote an old candidate from years ago. And I'm glad he's got that energy and that he's ready to move forward. One of the things that Lauren put forward, that we were spending all this money on highfalutin technology like geothermal, but what it comes down to is the geothermal is not only energy efficient, but over the course of the life of the bond, and that's the money we borrowed to pay for the highway garage, because you don't just go out and buy the thing out of cash out of pocket and put in, you know, you bond for the entire project spread out over 20 years. So when we're paying for that geothermal system, you have to take into account all the oil you're not buying and everything. We saved the money. We saved it by, I think, year 7. So it's a no-brainer when you can buy something like that and spread it out over 20 years to put a good green technology into place that's going to save the town money. That was the kicker that convinced everybody on the board to move forward on it. Everybody was 100% on board. And these are the kind of things you have to understand with the government, how it's being financed, how it's going to affect the town in the long run, and whether it's, you know, it's a sound investment. And these are the kind of things we really need now more than ever. And I think Jeremy's got his work cut out for him, but I think he's up to the task. And with that, I know you've heard enough from me. I'm going to put on my glasses so I can push the right button here. I'm going to move you on over to Mr. Jeremy Wilber. Good evening, Jeremy.
Thanks, Gordon. I don't know if they've heard enough from you. I think they've certainly heard enough from me at this point. It's been a long campaign. This all started last May. And You know, my message tonight is really the same message that I had, that I presented when I first decided to run back in May. The reason why I'm doing this is because I think I can be useful. I know we've hit a rough patch. The revenues have certainly dried up. And that mic, gotta get a little closer.
Point it up. Turn it just.
There we go. Okay. And so, you know, that's why I'm here. I think I can be useful. Gordon, since you mentioned some names, I'd just like to say I want to thank our county controller, Mr. Elliot Auerbach, for the help that he's given me with a more thorough understanding of the so-called 2% cap. I want to thank Mr. Hine for coming up to the town a couple of weeks ago and lending me his support. And there was another name you mentioned there. John Sennett, it was good to see him in town. And the campaigns countywide, I think, are just as interesting for the reasons that you pointed out as our local race here. I think, you know, as amiable as the debate was the other night, and let me also repeat Gordon's sentiment there with respect to Lauren. He is a good guy. His family's been here for a long, long time, and they're all good people, and I complimented him there, and I'll compliment him here on the whole tenor of the campaign, certainly issue-oriented, and you know, I think this benefits everyone, certainly the taxpayer who's making up their mind between us two. I think there are some differences in our candidacies. I think it's clear to everyone I have the experience and a very keen understanding of our town and its institutions and its infrastructure and its needs and the, shall we call them, the expectations of our electorate and our residents. Another thing that I think that separates us is the issue that came up recently with regard to the local dispatch, which he described as a redundant service. Now, it's true that the county does have a 911 service. However, before I go and describe our local dispatch service as redundant, I think that this would first require a very extensive discussion with the community and a deeper understanding, if not the deepest understanding, of really what the function of the local dispatch service is before we go describing it as redundant. Now, for instance, the county and the state of New York have highway departments. Would we describe our highway department as redundant? I don't think so. Now, the analogy is not perfect, but nonetheless, I think there are some parallels there. I think that before we go describing our local dispatch service, those of you who were here for Irene and who had urgent questions with regard to power or where's ice being delivered or, you know, what's going on, you're not going to get that information calling 911. 911 is only interested in knowing whether or not you're bleeding, whether someone's sticking a gun at you, whether your house is on fire, and if it's not that, then frankly they're not interested in hearing from you at all. So I was very interested in Carl Sass's letter in the Woodstock Times this week, in defending the dispatch service. I'm not saying that what Carol says is all necessarily, you know, everything that we have to accept. But I will say that I think that it requires more than just sort of a flippant, you know, description of our local access service or public emergency dispatch service as something that's redundant. I think we should really investigate more what we're getting from that service, what the police department gets from that service, and the fire department. Let me correct a misapprehension that some people have, that there is no connection now between dispatch and the fire department. There most certainly is. The fire department still makes a modest contribution to the dispatch services. Certainly our police depend on them so much that they gave back a 2% raise that they were going to get this coming year. In order to help persuade the town board to maintain the service for at least that long. So I thought that was a pretty sharp difference. Another difference that I detected, by the way, the number here is 679-7777. And if you get tired of me talking about things that don't necessarily interest you, give us a call and ask a question, and let's find out what's on your mind. We all agree that the town board did a monumental job of cutting the budget as much as they have. They've cut, I believe, more than $200,000 off the expenditures from last year. However, because of the much shortage of revenue into the budget, that's not going to mean that the levy is going to be reduced. No, the levy is going to go up. The overall town-wide levy, general fund, highway, fire, and library, I believe is going to come in somewhere around 4.7%, something like that. Considering that this discussion all began this September, that they were, to get it that close to the so-called 2% cap in this short period of time, it was pretty monumental work. But however, I will say that if you look at the budget, it's going to be a very, 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 very interesting budget to administer next year. It's really down to the bone, and I personally think that the services that we've come to expect from our governmental agencies can be delivered, will be delivered, but I think it's going to require a great deal of imagination and nimbleness in order to make that happen. So I congratulate the board on its work. As I pointed out at the meeting, and I didn't hear any dissension from my opponent, so I will just assume that this is another area of difference between us. The one objection that I made among the cuts, the many, many cuts, and some of them very, very painful cuts made in the general fund budget, the cut that I just absolutely object to was the reduction from $4,000 to $200 appropriation to Family of Woodstock, which is our social services organization. It is now county-wide. It was born in this town. I was here in this town. Many of you were here in this town when Family of Woodstock first came into being in the late 60s, early 70s, to address the local infusion of youth that were coming into our town, many of them with bare feet, many of them now who own stores in our town and have become quite productive and respectable citizens in our town. Well, a lot of them, when they first showed up, they needed a little helping hand, and Family of Woodstock was there to give it to them. Family of Woodstock has now, much expanded their program. A little while ago, Gordon was mentioning domestic violence as one of the things that Jonathan Sennett is concentrating on in his bid for Ulster County District Attorney. Well, guess what? There's a shelter for battered women provided by Family of Woodstock. I guess you would just have to, know more about the experiences of battered women to know how important that is to have such sanctuary. Anyway, my point is, yes, it's tough times, but I don't think this is the time to take it out on those who can bear the burden the least. That's all. I just think $4,000, to each one of us, that's less than 1/4 of a penny per $1,000 assessed value to keep that institution funded to the degree that it was. And it's just one area. It's just, to me, a budget representing really the morals and the values of a community. I just don't think that represents Woodstock, but you tell me. Anyway, those, I guess, were maybe the most salient differences that I can think of. From our debate the other night, and I want to thank Brian Hollander, by the way, for a very nice job of moderating. He was very reluctant, it turned out later, I find, or not. I shouldn't say he was reluctant. I should say that he felt maybe some compunction about asking me the cell tower question, as if, I had some sense of embarrassment about the cell tower. Of course I don't. His question was, gee whiz, shouldn't have that thing been put out to bid? And my response is, well, gosh, how do you put out something to bid that's being given to you free? Which the cell tower was. The taxpayer didn't spend 5 cents on that cell tower. But there was another point that I wish I had made with all those people sitting in the room, which was that the cell tower, which was built for the town absolutely free, which is owned by the town, that is the town's property. The carriers that go on that cell tower get leases from the town. Those leases are subject to town board approval. And the interesting thing to me, among those folks who were very much against the cell tower, for whatever the reasons were, the wrong location or the bad deal or this or that, in New York state law, my friends, before a town can lease municipal property, it has to adopt a resolution that is subject to permissive referendum. And when we adopted that resolution by a 3-2 vote, there were 2 members of the town board at that time who were very, 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 very opposed to the cell tower. Why didn't anyone go out and petition for a permissive referendum? I think the answer is obvious, but I'll just leave it for you. Was that a question, Gordon?
Yeah, Jeremy, we actually had a caller who had concerns that we've taken away the health benefits for the justices and the town board, and they think that that's was not necessarily a good thing. They don't like to see that taken away from our public servants.
Well, you know what? I want to tell you something. That is a painful cut, no question about it. And there is one member of the town board in particular who probably suffered the most, since he had a family policy, and he's got a lot to make up there. The only thing that I can say with regard to that, and I agree, it's painful and it's no fun, but there is sort of at least a consistency to the policy, to the town's policy of not extending health benefits to part-time workers. The justices who do a great job for our town, and I'm not taking anything away from it, and I'm not saying that they just show up at court, twice a month and that's all they do. I know that there's much more work involved with the job of being a town justice. But I think that before there's any discussion of a restoration or whatever, I think it would be another issue that would have to be really thoroughly discussed among the public. To really understand more the function of the position, not just the justices, but the town board members too. Maybe there was an unfair cut there. Although I will say the board, made that to themselves. It was painful, and I think the one very positive thing that can be said about it, and I know that this is not necessarily going to make those who made the sacrifice happy, but I think it should offer them some sort of content, is that I think it really showed the public that their local government is very, very concerned about the spending, and they can at least take pride in that the government has responded. They didn't take the cut out on everyone else; they also took the cut out on themselves. But I agree, it was a very painful cut, and certainly a very abrupt cut. So, I listen. I commend everyone for being, willing to make that sort of gesture to the public. And again, the number here is 679-7777 if you've got another question or a point or whatever. In a couple of minutes, I'm going to have Peter Cross, who's the candidate for town board, come and have a conversation with you. Jay Wemp, a couple of days ago, it's my understanding, he was also going to be here toward the latter part of the hour, and he will sit in Peter's chair and have a conversation with you. And that's that. Going back to the debate the other night, and again, I want to thank everybody for coming out to that. It was nice seeing, a room full of people all interested, keenly interested in local affairs, and wanting to really give the 2 supervisor candidates the scrutiny that they gave. I compliment the public for coming out, for their behavior. There was some, whistling and laughing and applause and this and that, and that's good, but you really kept a lid on it, and it gave Lauren and I think, a real good environment to express ourselves. So, was that another question, comment?
Yes, Jeremy. Somebody notices that, a lot of time when issues come up, people will come out and say, why weren't we told? And, so that goes to the issue of how do you propose to keep the community apprised of the goings on the board? How do you see that going forward?
Well, it was under the administration, my last administration. We were the administration, and this was from prodding by the public, by the way. I'm not saying that I just, showed up and did this. I want to say that the public sort of nudged us toward this, and it was a good nudge. Back in the old days, when you went to a town board meeting, you were presented with the agenda when you walked in the room. You had no idea what the board was going to be discussing, unless, a board member happened to tip you off, until you walked in the room, that being a Tuesday night. during my administration, we started sending out so-called preliminary agendas on Friday evening before the close of business, so that people had all the weekend and Monday to, find out more information about whatever this agenda item was that may be of interest to them, and be prepared for the Tuesday night meeting. I certainly agree that it's not, a great thing to have things suddenly sprung on you. Which is why, if I wanted to critique the board for one thing in this whole budget season with all the cuts that they made, I think it's too bad that the conversation hadn't started earlier. I think that there were some indications earlier this year that such a conversation was definitely coming. And I'm sorry that the town board didn't take the opportunity. I think that there was some optimism there, and it turned out to be somewhat misplaced with regard to revenue. So I don't know if the caller is referring specifically to that. That is to say, all these very, very late in the season serious cuts and changes to the budget. But if they are, all I can say is that with the budgets that I had presented over my 8 years, some of them with tax increases and some of them with tax decreases, I was pretty good at sort of getting the number right, and there were no surprises. I mean, an example of that was when we sold the highway bond referendum, when we were out there campaigning for that, for its passage in June of 2004, I believe is when that was. I told the people that it's going to cost you, if this bond passes, it's going to cost you 46 cents per $1,000 assessed value. Now, before the referendum, we had the reval, which basically doubled the assessments, not the levies, but the assessments. There's a difference there, folks. I know some of you like to think that there's not, but there is. But it doubled the assessed value of the town, the reval that we did in 2004, which meant that 46 cents per $1,000 was reduced to 23 cents per $1,000. And guess what? We bonded, we built the garage, the first bond payments came due, and what was it? It was 23 cents per $1,000 assessed value. And it hasn't gone up, and in fact, as the years go by, it's only going to go down ever so incrementally as the interest costs go down. But anyway, I was pretty good during my 8 years of not surprising anybody with numbers. Numbers didn't suddenly grow, numbers didn't suddenly shrink. Numbers were what they were, and you could think what you could think about them, or wanted to think about them, but the number themselves, the facts, remained pretty solid. And that's a skill that I'll just simply bring back. I will certainly, if there are budgetary things coming down the pike, I'm going to bring it to the public's attention sooner and not later. And with that, I'm going to introduce our guest, Peter Cross. Peter. Good to see you.
Hi, Jeremy. Good to see you.
Well, so Peter, lifelong Democrat running on the Republican line. How's it going?
Well, good. It's been real good, and I've been out campaigning and talking to folks.
Peter, can you lower the mic straight in your face? Talking
to people and getting their take on what the issues are and what they think should be done. First questions I'm asked is why I'm running for the town board, and it's several reasons. The first one is that I'm on the planning board and have been for several years, and we deal with all the nuts and bolts issues that come before every applicant's project. So things that concern businesses in town, issues with zoning setbacks, issues with special use permits, things that people need to make their projects work, are issues that we deal with on the planning board. And I believe that on the town board, I would get a chance to help shape the laws and change the laws that would make these businesses do better and make projects move along a little bit easier. So that's why, other than the fact that I am a lifetime Woodstocker, a native Woodstocker, born and raised here, and I love this town, and I love to see it remain the town that it is, the rural town, the feeling it has. And I understand that we have to make some changes, and we have to look at the future. So for that reason, I'd like to work on the town board and do my civic duty to help the town.
And I know one of the issues that you bring up often is an idea of reviving the conversation for a comprehensive plan.
Yes, very much. And again, in talking to people during the campaign, most of the issues that are brought up would be covered in a comprehensive plan. The goal of a comprehensive plan is to get a collective, meaning everybody in the town's input, a collective vision of our future. And then we would take an inventory of our assets, everything that we have, all the lands that we have, the environmentally sensitive areas to be protected, our aquifers, our wetlands, our streams, our mountains, and to take a look at the whole picture, because Woodstock is a fairly small town considering. We're about 35,000 acres. About a quarter of that, or just about a quarter of that, 10,000 some acres, is already in conservation, DEC lands or DEP city lands that is already conserved. About another quarter of that is developed, that has already been developed upon. So that leaves about a third of it that's undeveloped. And out of that, there's a great portion of that that cannot be developed due to steep slopes, wetlands, environmentally sensitive areas. So we need to really take our time in this lull in development due to the economic situation and take a total picture of our town, make a map of it. It's called ArcGIS mapping, which is a digital map, much like Google Earth, except much more highly detailed, of our town, of all our town's assets, of our infrastructure, our water systems, our sewer systems, our streets, and be able to project into the future what our development would look like. For instance, people ask about parks and recreation areas. That's something that we now should take a look at because there won't be that many more options to look at lands that we could use for that and how we would go about doing it. The comprehensive plan is something that I believe that is a very open process. The comprehensive plan committee should meet on scheduled dates, at least once a month, a date that's published. It should be open to the public. It should be carried both electronically and media so that people that can't attend can actually, from their homes, through social networking and through the electronic media, be able to get their input. And the idea also would be it's a good forum for people to bring up issues that would like to do it at town board meetings, but it's very difficult. The town board has agenda. They have issues they need to do a lot of research on and then discuss and vote on. And it can be disruptive and time-consuming for just general public to express their ideas and wishes, which is a great thing. But I think a better forum would be in a comprehensive plan committee where ideas for the future or even ideas for the present can be looked at, discussed, and then presented to the supervisor and to the town board so that they can, when it is brought up, at least they have a chance to look at it. So the comprehensive plan is a way to guide the town board and the planning board and all the different committees toward all the different issues down the future. It is something that, of course, changes as events change. Should be reviewed every 5 years, to keep up with the times. But it is what guides us, and it will give us a direction as to answering issues. For instance, I'm asked a lot about employment, jobs, what the young folks will do here so they don't leave town. We need to look at what kind of businesses, what kind of things that we can do to attract businesses or to even get our young folks to come up with new ideas that they could work and live here in this town and volunteer to help the town and be part of it. So that's part of the comprehensive plan.
Uh-huh. So, I'm sorry, Gordon, you got a question?
We did have a caller that had a question for Peter. They heard you at the candidates night in Lake Hill the other week, and they felt that you didn't have enough time to explain, they heard you talk about developable and undevelopable land in Woodstock because of certain issues, whether it's lay of the land or water or.
Right, well, again, the idea of a comprehensive plan is to map out our assets and what we have, our features. We even, for instance, even with Rupco's affordable housing that they have going now, the 57 unit or 47 units, we still have a tremendous need for affordable housing, for startup homes, for small lots where people can, young families can build a small house on a small lot, something they can afford to get started with. So we're going to have to look at places that develop. All towns have to grow. We hope to grow and bring in talented folks. But we need to look at those areas that are developable. There are going to be great tracts of land due to environmental reasons. As I said, steep slopes and fragile soils, wetlands and streams that we need to protect. Clearly, as we've seen during these last storms, we are going to have more rainfall. That's part of global warming. I think that this is an accepted reality now, that we will get more rainfall. We're going to have to make adjustments in our planning and in our land use to accommodate that. So the lands that are developable, we need to look at probably developing in a more highly densely way, cluster housing, high density development. And then areas that are more sensitive, we are going to have to try to find a way to have less development in them. Of course, bearing in mind, the landowner's rights to develop on their land, but we need to do it in an economically and environmentally sensitive way.
So when you're out there, Peter, you hear much about the budget and what's been going on?
Of course, that's the big talk, and the number one fiduciary duty of a town board member is the budget. And if I was on the town board, I would pledge to everybody to make that my main concern. I think as we've seen here with this last minute slashing of the budget and cuts to make it work, that I think town board members should be more up to speed during the year to take better and more looks at what's going on, to be appraised of changes in the budget, changes in costs of things, so that we don't have a last minute end of the year bloodletting of essential services and things that we depend on. So I think it's just it's more important for board members to work with the supervisor and to really keep up during the year on a monthly basis of any changes, unexpected costs or unexpected events, and keep our budget tuned up so that we don't run into these problems at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to not let it go by without being mentioned, but it's my understanding that you were being helped a lot, or at least help was pledged to you with respect to the GIS portion from Jerry Washington in for the comprehensive plan stuff.
Yes, exactly. The very important work, and I hope to continue that under the new administration and to work with Jerry and others. This is the idea. One of the key components of the comp plan is ArcGIS mapping of the town. Jerry's been working very hard on that and making great gains and getting that going. The idea there is, and even Paul Henderson, who was on the planning board, would like to keep on working on this project. The idea is that the town have a map, a digital map of all our features, and that we keep it updated so that we're able to make decisions in-house, both the highway department, water sewer department, without having to hire outside engineers and surveyors and consultants all the time, so that we have our own map of our own information of our infrastructure that we can rely on as far as making decisions on how to improve it and how to maintain it. Also, the idea is that we have GPS units so that when people go out, for instance, the building department is inspecting a new building, a new well, a new septic, that these items are GPS into the map so that we now know where they are and where they're located, and it helps planning when we look at development in nearby areas. It helps us, planning board members, to have a better, bigger look at the picture and make better planning decisions.
Mm-hmm. You know, Peter, I think some people who might be curious to know, going back to your background, you talked about being a lifelong woodstocker. You at one point in your youth worked at the former manifestation of the Woodstock Playhouse.
Oh, I did. It was great. I worked for Edgar. I started out sweeping the floors and cleaning up, and finally got very interested in the backstage work. I worked building flats out all night long in the summer nights, right through the night, from what they call strike night, when you strike one set and get ready for a next play. Even got to do a little bit of small parts in some of the plays.
You gotta tell us the parts. You gotta tell us the parts.
Oh, I did Irma La Douce. I remember that held over for a couple of extra weeks, and it was really exciting running into the dressing rooms and changing costume and coming back out and setting the lights up.
Who played Irma?
And Irma.
Who played Irma? Do you remember?
You know, I can't remember, but I think you brought that up the other day. But yeah, it was great. It was a wonderful part of Woodstock's summer life, and I certainly hope the new Playhouse does well. It's that kind of a thing we'd like to see Woodstock do well in, as part of its image, and should be part of its financial health. Just like the Woodstock Film Festival, I think, is a wonderful addition to Woodstock's art community. These are things that make our summers exciting and alive, and bring in tourists to our town, and I think it's a great thing.
Maybe we'll get the Polaris Gallery back.
Yes, that would be good.
We did have another question from a caller in regards to the sewer treatment plant and the mention of reed beds in the application.
Oh, well, you know what? I'm glad. That's a great question. You know, I was just reading very recently an engineered report about reed beds as it pertains to, you know, the potential of it pertaining to our area. This is a reed bed that was constructed for a sewage treatment plant south of the county, an area very much in topography, very much resembling that near our sewage treatment plant. You know, were such a thing to be constructed, it would save just thousands of dollars every year for disposal fees. Because even after sewage is processed through the plant, there's sludge that can't be processed through the plant, and it has to be all gathered up and put in the truck and driven off, in this case, to Saugerties, to their plant that can handle it and process it into something that can be discharged into the environment. But were we to construct such a thing at our sewage treatment plant, again, it would knock tens of thousands of dollars off the cost of the operation and maintenance costs per year. So if I get the job that I'm looking for, that's one of the very first things that I will pursue on behalf of the people in the sewer districts, to reduce significantly the cost of their disposal fees by pursuing this reed bed technology. It's great technology. It costs practically nothing to operate. It's not, you know, electric. It's not gas. It's not. You know, we did make one improvement to the plant. Well, we made several, but one significant improvement we made to the plant down there was by converting one of its structures into a digester. What had been going on for many years was the drying beds in the sewage treatment plant never worked properly, never worked adequately. And so for years they were broiling, yes, literally broiling the sewage, the sludge, under propane lanterns. And then it would be dried to a certain point where they could go in there and manually shovel this stuff onto a truck and cart it off to a landfill, I believe in New Paltz. Well, we changed that. We at least improved that. We no longer had workers going in there with shovels, and we took off all the propane lanterns, and we made a far more economic way of processing the sludge. But it can still be better. And I'm glad that question was asked because, again, I was following the development in south of the county here where that reed bed was going in, the success that they've had with it. And that's something that I certainly want to investigate for our sewage treatment plant. But Peter, back to you. Where were we? The Polaris Gallery. I think I was taking a walk down memory lane with you for a minute because, of course, we both grew up in this town. One of the issues that came up the other night, and I know that this is something that we experienced together, a question that we experienced together growing up. Well, gee whiz, what about the youth? What about the kids? Now, you had mentioned, the idea in a comprehensive plan of identifying industries or businesses that could be attracted to our area that would maybe hire some of our youth and maybe keep them here. But do you have any ideas about what we can do for our young people here?
Well, it's certainly a challenge because for a town board or even for parents to try to figure out what the kids want to do is a tough one. But there are several things that I think the town can provide for the youth that would help. And one of them, of course, is good sport fields, places where they can go out and play soccer or frisbee or run around, have a good time. We need good spaces like that that they can enjoy and spend time here. The youth center serves a wonderful purpose. We went to the youth center when we were kids.
We were the generation that made it happen. Chris Gaiman leading the demonstrations.
It was the youth center was where we went. It was our safe place to go and listen to music and talk to our friends. And I think the youth center does a wonderful job. And we need to keep supporting it as much as we can. But I think that it's an interesting thing is to find what will work for the younger generation to do in town. And I think a lot of it, we can ask them for their input. I think that they could have a lot of good ideas for things to do that could keep them busy, keep them occupied, and make their time beneficial. And I think that's something we need to encourage, and so that our town is not just a bedroom community. The rest of the community, has families live here. They go to school here. Their kids are here. We want to encourage that. We want to be a town that people that have a family life in, and that kids can grow up and enjoy the town. So I think we need to do as much as we can, and ask it again. That's part of the comprehensive plan, is to get other people's input, to get everybody's input as to what good ideas would be.
Mm-hmm. What I like about our youth center is the idea of a youth center is just to have a place that's safe for kids to congregate. And what I mean by safe is, protected from predators, whether they be drug dealers or sexual adventurers or whatever. But, an environment where they can go and where, the people running the youth center, they're not breathing down their necks. They're not, putting them under a microscope. But they're providing that environment where, as a parent anyway, you can feel confident that your kid is at least being protected from some potential bad elements. So, the dispatch, this whole thing with that, did you have thoughts about that?
Well, I do agree that that there is a 911 county service, and I agree with what you said the other night, that if you call it, unless your leg's been cut off, they're not going to do much about it. Our local dispatch knows our local folks, knows the roads. They know the homes, they know the people. So when they're called, they know everybody involved, and I think that's a real good thing that we keep it, and it serves a really good purpose.
Keep going up here.
To have a service like that people here feel comfortable with and rely on, I think is very, very important. I really do. I like I said before, I hate to see at these the final hour of the year budget slashing cuts do these kind of things where it could have been avoided by careful scrutiny of costs during the year if everybody on the town board really watched what was going on, really works with the supervisor. I don't think we'd end up with these last-minute drastic cuts to services that people depend on.
Mhm. Well, Peter, I really thank you for coming here.
Thanks, Jeremy.
And good luck.
Good talking to you.
And if not before, I'll see you election night. And so I guess Jay, who was invited, he told me he was going to be here, but I guess he's not because we're almost at the end of the hour. So I'll just, we got a couple minutes here, and I'll just finish up by saying a few things. I first of all want to thank those people, and you will be getting a letter of thanks, not just this over the air, with your late support for this campaign. One note from one lady out there in Mount Tremper particularly was touching to me, and I thank you very, very much for the sentiment that you conveyed in that message. The other thing I want to say is I want to, again, compliment my opponent. I think the campaign that he's been waging has been very above board and issue-oriented. I think I'm the better qualified. I think the times require someone with the experience that I can bring to the table, and I think that as far as native intelligence and all this and all that, I don't think there's a huge degree of separation between Lorne and myself. I think what separates us very, very much is my 8 years of experience and this particular time requiring, in my opinion, the experience that I can bring to the table to first of all administer this budget that we've got coming at us in this coming year, and to prepare the 2013 budget in such a manner where it's not going to be very surprising to us. I am, of course, going to do my very, very best to adhere to the 2% cap law. Even better, if I can make it even better than that, I will. However, I'm not going to say to you that under no cost whatsoever will I not allow that budget to exceed 2%, because if the bridge washes out to your house, I'm going to replace the bridge. I don't care if it goes beyond the 2% cap. If there's a sudden need that our seniors or that our kids have to have, I'm not going to say, well, no, you can't have it because of a 2% cap. But I am going to do my best. I did keep taxes down when I was the supervisor for 8 years. As Gordon mentioned in his introduction, I did not create new departments. I didn't hire new employees. I didn't make fancy new hooch cars. The only thing that I did was improve our highway garage and get our boys out there and our women out there out of those 19th century conditions that they had been working in. And I thank the town board that I was working with during that time for all that good work. But anyway, that's why I'm running. I think I can be useful. It's been a very nice campaign. It's been very interesting. They all are. You've all had very provoking questions, and I've really enjoyed meeting with you. Something that I have noticed is that the town is feeling the stress of the times. I see it in the houses. I see it. I just see it, and I just want you to know I'm very sensitive to it, and I'm going to do my very, very best, if you give me the job that I'm looking for, to really watch your money, to make all its transactions as transparent as I possibly can. And getting back to an earlier question that somebody called in, not to surprise anybody, not to spring anything on the last minute on people, on you, the taxpayer, or on anybody, but to keep things moving along just as smoothly as I know this community deserves, with all its very, very interesting people and all its interesting little societies and constituencies, many of whom I'm very, very connected or familiar with. And I thank you so much. And Gordon, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to come on your show. I will be here next week with Ken Panza. Be a very interesting conversation with Ken. Ken, of course, is another man who's very, very familiar with numbers. And I think we're going to have a very, very good conversation. So I hope you'll tune in next Sunday at 7 o'clock. I hope there's not an exciting football game to distract you. And I thank you so much, and good night.
Thank you, Jeremy. And I want to thank Peter Cross for coming tonight to let the good folks in town hear some more what you have to say. And we'll be looking forward to seeing you again next week, same time, 7 o'clock on Sunday. And thank you all for tuning in.
Good night.